some of them might. I think you should knit them.
But anyways, we had a good discussion, and all in all, it seemed really positive, and the teachers had thought that it was very positive that Dr. Meyer had written us a statement to read to our students the next day. So all in all, a bad situation turned out not too bad. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And once again, I forgot, is there anybody here for public comment? I even highlighted it and I still forgot it. All right. I'm sorry. Anything from the PTA? Right here.
Hi there.
Hi. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, April 5th at 6:30 in the CS Library, and we'll be holding a family bingo night this Friday night at CMS. The doors open at 5:30 p.m. It's $10 to play, and we'd like to thank our community for being so generous. There are some amazing baskets available. And then there will be changes to the board of the PTA this year. Immediately, Shannon Abram is stepping down as co-vice president, and myself and Amy Bishop are also stepping down at the end of the school year. We're happy to say that there is a new wave of young parents that will bring PTA to the next level. I would like to personally thank everyone that has made this volunteer opportunity so amazing for me in my many years serving the Clinton Public Schools. It has been an honor and a pleasure to work with so many parents, teachers, and administrators. The nominations for the board will take place in May, with elections taking place at the June meeting. And then for CPAC, our next meeting is tomorrow night at 6:30 in the CS Library. At our February meeting, we had a guest speaker, Stacy LeBac from CMS. She's a BCBA. She came and talked about what it looks like in the different grade levels at CMS. And she was a wealth of information for our families, and she was very supportive and gracious in our questions to her, and that was really wonderful. April 4th, we will be having coffee with the assistant superintendent. These are rough drafts, but kind of like what the idea would be that would be happening. It was supposed to happen this month, but due to some circumstances, we are pushing it to April. And it'll be an informal meeting for parents and caregivers to ask questions and find out more information about special ed or any information that they feel is important to their student. And our basic rights meeting, which is normally in March, is going to be bumped to May 2nd. And we are still working on the breakdown of the IEP for our families. And that we will be working on bits and pieces of it through the rest of the year. And that's it. Oh, wait, I forgot, sorry. CPAC, along with David S. Allman Memorial Scholarship, will be doing the concession stands at the play on March 24th and 25th, with us splitting the proceeds to go towards CPAC, which is going to go towards our scholarship, and then the David S. Allman Memorial Scholarship. So either way, your money is going to be going towards a scholarship, and we're so fortunate that we have 2 CPAC scholarships, and then the David S. Allman Memorial Scholarship too.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She did all that too. She just did, yeah. We're good. Yep. All right, Dr. Meyer.
Yep. Thank you. So we don't keep her out here all night. We do have Miss Elliott here to talk a little update on the Paris-Barcelona trip coming up over April vacation. We brought it up a while ago. I know we got you guys some information on the COVID policies and that kind of stuff that we had asked about. But we wanted to invite her back to just go over some of the final logistics so you know a little bit about that trip.
Okay. Hi. So the logistics, we're leaving on April 14th, which is Friday, before April vacation, returning the following Friday, April 21st. We'll be departing Clinton High School using Knight's limo for airport transportation, and also for the return trip. We'll be getting back around 9:30 that Friday night. We have 26 students and 4 teacher chaperones. The students have all purchased the Global Travel Protection Plan insurance that is a little above and beyond what the standard is. And I have copies of it if anybody wants to take a copy. The students have all signed a no alcohol permitted on tour contract, and also agreed to certain rules of the road, which I have included here for anybody who wants to see that. As far as COVID goes, currently, the countries that we're traveling to, including Canada, we're flying through Canada, are not requiring a COVID vaccine or a proof of a negative test. That could change. We have a meeting coming up March 30th, and we'll update families on what's going on at that point. On tour, if required, students will be wearing masks, which they will provide. Students are going to be packing their own COVID tests as well, just in case. And if a student is diagnosed with COVID on tour, depending on what the local guidelines are for isolation, at that time will follow. And then there is the EF Tours COVID-19 Care Promise, and you might want to look at that. If a student is diagnosed with COVID-19 while on tour, the EF Tour companies does provide or arrange the following consistent with local requirements at no additional expense to the traveler. So that's lodging, meals, an EF representative to support the traveler, assistance with connecting with local healthcare providers, translation service, communication back home, arranged flights back home, and if the diagnosed travel is a minor, flights for their parent or guardian to join them at the tour location. So if you do have any other questions about the trip or the itinerary, we're spending 3 nights in Barcelona and 3 nights in Paris.
Sounds fun.
Yeah.
No, I think it's good. I think, I know, we had some of the questions about COVID. I think a lot of them were answered. I'm glad to see that, I'm sure EF Tours pretty much had to do this to stay in business, but it's nice that they've at least expanded these protections and offered these things. So I feel that, obviously, hopefully nothing, hopefully it's a smooth trip, but if it's not, we have the contingencies in place.
Exactly.
So that'll be good. And I think the last time we talked about it, we weren't quite sure exactly when the flights were going to be and that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to give a final sort of update now that we're a little closer.
So does anybody want anything?
I'll take a
Good.
copy.
Okay.
I know we had some type of the insurance information in our packet, but I didn't know.
Yeah, you have a summary of this that Ms. Elliott provided in the packet, and then I did email you some of this stuff earlier, I
Oh, yeah,
think.
that's
Right, and I just kind of copied and
Yeah.
pasted it into this document here. So,
Thank you.
All right,
so all set?
thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Have fun.
Enjoy your trip.
Oh, thank you.
Can you just
I don't
give
think we can,
give Kelly a copy of that? Thank you. As far as staffing updates, we have 2 teachers who will be going on, we have Felicia Bradley, a grade 8 math teacher, should be going on a maternity leave shortly after April vacation. We're currently looking for a long-term sub right now to fill that position. And Stacy LeBack of BCBA at CMS is requesting maternity leave, but that's not until the beginning of next year, but she's put in that request right now. So it would start at the beginning of the next school year. And the other one I wanted to update you guys on is business manager. So, as you know, right now, Glenn Fotto's our business manager. He's part-time. He's retired and working for us part-time. So Glenn and I met, and I think at this point, we're not going to bring Glenn back next year in the capacity of business manager. We still might bring Glenn back. We're working on sort of more of like a mentor type, coaching type role. But what I'd like to do is appoint Annette Colon, who's the assistant business manager, to business manager. And then for right now, for next year, we wouldn't fill the assistant business manager position. So she would essentially be the business manager. which is kind of part of the whole transition, right? It's like while we had Glenn in there, Glenn was helping to mentor her and kind of get her through the get her comfortable with everything. And then, and like I said, I think we still might keep Glenn on in sort of a reduced role as more of a mentor, so he's available next year, but sort of phasing him out of the business manager role and putting Annette into the business manager role. So that is one that you guys have to, I recommend and you approve. So if you guys are comfortable with it, if you're willing to make a motion to allow me to offer the business manager position and enter contract negotiations with Annette Cologne.
I'll make a motion to allow Dr. Meyer to execute a succession plan for the business manager position.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All right, thank you. In your packet, I know it kind of seems like it was a while ago, but we have the just a quick rundown for you on the February 14th swatting incident. This is our first meeting since that incident with the vacation in there, so at least wanted to close the loop on that. I know that it was nice to hear Ms. Quist's words about it, that the teachers genuinely thought it was pretty good. But I know other thing, it was, the best thing that came out of it is, like I said, when you go on a lockdown, the best thing that can happen is to find out it's a hoax, right? So that was great. So now you look at it and you say, what was it? It was a good learning experience. It's like the best drill you can have because originally it was real, right? So we're looking at a lot of things, including communication. Like I said, we're going to go through with the staff and clarify a little more some of the difference, the nuances between things like lockdown and shelter in place to kind of make sure everything's there. We had some restroom concerns that came up, and partly because, and we discussed this when we met with the police afterwards, it was sort of a weird situation because when you do these emergency plans, you're normally thinking that a crisis is an event is going to occur in the school, which is going to trigger the crisis. And then it's typically the actual crisis is then neutralized within minutes, right? Like typically those situations are minutes. That's how long you're. Well, because the threat sort of initiated by a call to the police station, we had police on the scene right away. We went into lockdown right away, but we really didn't know what we were locking down from, right? So people were sort of in more of a high energy emergency response protocol for a long time. So what we talked about that was in that situation of realizing like we need to be more cognizant of being able to sort of maybe after a certain initial pass, could we have lifted it from lockdown to shelter in place? Like, so we're still staying tucked away in our rooms, but it's a little less intense right now, knowing we can always go back if we need to, right? So those are the nuances that we talked about when we debriefed it. That's part of what we'll talk about with the staff on the 13th. Parent communication, one of the things that I really noticed was I felt that there was I would think a disproportionate number of non-English speaking or non-English as a first language families that came immediately rushing to the school for like to dismiss their kids, right? One of the things that I reflect on and say what could have contributed to that was in the effort to get communication out so quickly, we weren't translating it, right? So if you don't fully understand the message, if you miss one word, the difference between there is not an intruder versus there is an intruder could be close. So what we're working on is trying to look at getting sort of at least an echoing type system where using our family outreach and liaisons and stuff that if I send out a message, it's still not going to slow me down getting the first message out, but then they could automatically, even off-site, echo it in Spanish and Portuguese so that we're getting that information out more clear to more parents. And that was about it. A couple other things. We talked about some cell phones. It was kids knew, or parents and families knew that they were in lockdown almost as quick as I knew we were in lockdown, and then all of a sudden people are starting to ask you, like, what's going on? And it's like, I'll tell you when I know. I'm getting briefed right now, So So that was a, that's, we don't really want to say like, oh, collect cell phones or put them away, because those could be useful. And we want, if someone actually witnesses something, something we talked about, in a real event, if someone actually happened to just witness something, they can text 911 and they could tell them what they witnessed, but we just want to make sure that try to talk to them about sort of that concept of keep the lines open. We don't want to, we're trying to transmit over our Wi-Fi in a lot of places here, and we don't need to get too much misinformation out there. So, but you're never going to stop that. I mean, that's the reality of today. And entering rooms, we had one sort of incident where, not an incident, but we had one case where a door was unlocked that a police officer checked, and it was fine. The situation ended up being fine, but you think, like, legitimately, had those kids had, like, distraction objects and whatever, when he checked that door, in theory, they should have been, like, throwing staplers at him. And then all of a sudden now a police officer walks in, gets staplers thrown at him, what's the first thing their reaction's going to be, right? So we just sort of went over that protocol, making sure about, and we'll talk about that. It's in our lockdown thing about not, if someone knocks at the door, about that identification, but trying to just make sure that we want to just reflect on that and make sure that we're not ever doing anything to accidentally sort of escalate a situation that doesn't need to be accidentally escalated. So
Yeah, and even identification, it's interesting, right? It wouldn't be like, it's the Clinton police. Well, any intruder could say that. So do we have a code word that only like the students would know
Right.
because it's that type of a scenario?
Or a
that
lot of
the
times,
intruder wouldn't know.
people talked about, do you slide a badge under the
Right.
door? Do you do certain things? Or we have keys too. We talked about, like, once a situation is kind of under control a little bit more and we're going through, it's like we talked about having a police officer and like an administrator go through. So now it's more of a voice you might recognize. It's like, this is Mr. Cermak and Clinton Police. We're opening the door because now we have a key, so we
Right.
can just open the door. We're not asking you to. We're doing it, Just so those kind of things, just kind of making sure we got all that. Overall, I thought the staff and the students handled it great. Like I said, I think for the most part, I think most parents thought we did an okay job of getting information out there. I definitely got more thank yous than hate mail, which I don't know if you got to judge things that way, but so that was good. And then, like I said, the 13th, we'll try to go through it again. And one of the things we did develop is a little survey, because we want to make sure we're not just basing things anecdotally. Like, really want to kind of know more, like, okay, we said the Remind system didn't work really well. Well, let's get some numbers on that. Like, how many people who have signed up for the Remind can say they didn't get it, And then when we did the text messaging through the campus messenger, how many people did or didn't get those messages, so we can try to quantify those a little bit better and just kind of make sure we're ironing out some of those. Also, we're asking some things about, like, even the intercom system, where you were in the building, did you hear the intercom calls? Because that's another area where I think we just got those rooms fixed, the preschool and the superintendent's built this kind of I think we just got those wired since that incident, So overall, I don't know, that's just, I just wanted to kind of put some closure to this, and I don't know if you guys have any.
Anyone got anything?
I mean,
Go ahead.
just
I had a
from-
couple things about it. Go ahead first.
Just for being in the public
Yeah.
and just hearing, how it all went and how scary it was, it was obvious that we were prepared and, we put the safety of the kids number one, which is what we all want. So, all in all, I thought it was very good. I mean, if anybody did have anything negative, of course, it's a scary situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's-
Whether your kid's in the 5th grade or whether he's a 32-year-old teacher, it's a scary thing. So I just thought it was all handled very well, and thank God it was just a hoax,
Yeah.
but it's good to know that we are prepared, and we'll keep being, learning more to be even more prepared. So, thank you.
And I just say, as far as communication goes, I could not get over the fact that parents were so informed, because at my house, I wasn't home, I was at physical therapy, I think, and I had 4 messages from you, just keeping everything up to date, and I thought that was outstanding.
We tried.
So Steve, when time flies, but what, 5-6 years ago, when you sat down we had the safety advisory committee and sat down with Chief Lovinger at the time and Lieutenant Coyne and identified the need and the desire for the resource officer.
Yeah.
And I won't bore, but I'm going to make this as fast as possible, but, it's paid dividends over the years, and now in a situation like this that and if I leave out a department, please, someone jump in, but you had the DPW and the facilities help block the roads, and our Clinton Police and Clinton Fire and your administration and each individual building with the principals. I was at the town hall, and I was standing with 4 parents, and we were getting the texts from our kids. But I applaud you for waiting, there's always this instant need for information, but somebody wants to know right away, but if you put out, as you know, put out something just to satisfy someone and it's wrong, it just adds to that, and each, I don't know, you had four, I don't know how many I got, but each one was an update, accurate update, so, social media did have some rumors that were squashed by those calls that you gave out, so,
Right.
like Tina said, I applaud everyone that here, and the students, I know, I know that most of the high school kids were just mad that they missed lunch, but, I know, that's all the texts I got. But,
At one point, that was all of a sudden, as we start realizing that this is probably not a real threat, right, and we're kind of getting to that realization with things, that was one of my first questions. I'm talking to the police, and I'm like, can I let the cafeteria ladies start cooking? Because when we come out of this, we're going to have to feed all these kids.
That was my call, but no, everybody handled it really well, and I applaud everyone, all the departments in town, and it just goes to that relationship that you guys have.
Yeah, and I'd say the police were great. I mean, it was...
State police, don't leave them out either.
Yeah, no, state police, local police. I mean, it was great working with, Chief Coyne, because there really wasn't any... It was clear who would defer to who if push came to shove, but no one was stepping in and saying, hey, this is my scene, you listen to me. Like it was, we were kind of like, what are you comfortable with right now? Like, are you okay if I'm okay if we bring the elementary school out. Are you okay if we bring the elementary school out? Like, sure, if you guys say it's all right, let's do it, and just kind of get that stuff going. So it was, it was a real drill, I guess, so.
Yeah, and even once it was over, I thought that the staff, like the front office staff, like between Libby and
Oh,
Christy
that was-
LaPearl, and, there were people crawling all over the place to try to figure things out, and it was organized chaos, but so well organized. Like, this is what we're doing, this is how we're dismissing them, there's no exceptions, this is how we're going to make it happen, and they did great. Like, it was really well done.
And that was another thing that we talked about, because we don't normally think about that, right? Normally, a crisis plan, you're assuming the worst, right? So you're thinking your dismissal plan is going to be way more complicated than that, right? And we had, I don't know, I think we gave people it was like a 10-minute head start. It's like, we're clearing this thing in 15 minutes. Get ready. Get a table out there.
It's coming.
But, yeah, I thought everyone did a nice job.
And I can only speak for the high school because my two children are here. I'm sure it was equally as well handled in the other buildings. I just wasn't at those buildings.
Oh, did you have something?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say, I was home really sick that day. I missed it all. So I missed it all, but I didn't miss it all because I didn't get any rest that morning.
Yeah.
Because my home phone kept ringing, and my cell phone kept ringing, and my text messages kept buzzing.
So you wasted a sick day.
So, and then after a while, my band students started texting me because they knew where I was,
Well.
But because I only need to deal in English, I thought it worked really well.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure my Remind app worked.
Right, and that's the stuff we'll try to figure out, so we can,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, I had a Remind app problem. I went to use the Remind app the first thing, and it's like, I haven't used it in so long. It was like, oh, can you update and re-log in? And they're like, no, I don't have time for that right now, like, just let me use it, so. But that's, that's stuff we'll learn from. The next two things in here, under kind of crisis, we have a quote from Life Support Systems for the Zoll PowerHeart G5 AED. What we'd like to do, we talked about this at the safety committee meeting, is we'd like to replace, we have 9 AEDs that were bought in, I forget if it was 2007 or 2009. They were purchased quite a while ago. They're still considered functional. They're serviced every year. But they're starting to get a little obsolete, and we wanted to look into them. And this upgraded model, it is bilingual, so it can give you the directions in English or Spanish. So it would be about $15,000 to upgrade all of those AEDs. We'd like to go ahead and do that. I was talking to Annette. I think we might have some money in gifts and donations, actually, that we received that we're going to be able to use to fund this. If not, we would use it from rental facilities because it's not a budgeted item. But part of the, it falls under the rental facilities because, if someone's here, if there's youth basketball, they might need the AEDs too, so. So I don't know if we need a formal vote for that, but I just want to, if you guys are okay with me moving forward with an AED purchase.
Absolutely.
Have at it. Great job.
I want to be the guy that says no.
And then the next one is these ones we talked about, I'm not sure as much on these. I might order like one of them as a trial first, but they're called Stop the Bleed stations. And basically they're kits that contain essentially like tourniquets and gauze and that kind of stuff. And the idea with them is, in the event an incident happened, you would kind of have these stations that you could grab these and you could try to sort of triage people until help is able to actually get in, right? So those first couple minutes when maybe like something just happened, you know, you see the person run away, you feel like you're kind of safe right now. If you can get one of these kits, you can start bandaging some people up. So we're going to look at that. This particular model, it comes in a case that you kind of mount on the wall. Most places what they do is they put them right by their AEDs, so you know where they are. And in that case, there's like 8 sub-kits that you could grab that you could use. So it's $540 for that packet of 8 and the kit. So I think what I'd like to do first is I'll probably order one just so we can look at it, see how it looks. I know that some people, I just want to see what all is in there because some people have said that they feel like $540 might be a little much for that kit. So I want to kind of get a look at one before we order 10. But before we start just trying to like make our own, let's see what this one looks like and see, you know, it's a professional one. And there are some states that actually mandate these kits. I know Texas is one of them. It's one of the things that you have to have in a school. So they have, and I think there's some other things. They have like markers in it and scissors in it or whatever it is, gloves. But the marker, you're supposed to write the time that you did it or something, you know, that kind of stuff. So little instruction cards. So I'll probably, using sort of that same, either the rental facilities or gifts and donations, I think what I'll do is order one so that we can review it with the safety committee and then decide if we want to make that a larger purchase. Everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. All right. Preliminary cherry sheet came out for the governor's budget. It was pretty good news for the school in terms of our Chapter 70 went up almost just about $1.9 million. And there's a couple other things. Our charter tuition went down a little bit. Our school choice receiving tuition went down a little bit. However, on the next page, when you see the charges, the school choice sending tuition also went down a lot. So, our school choice receiving tuition dropped about $30,000, but our school choice sending tuition dropped about $64,000. So it was a little improvement in that. And the part that we need to look at though and just keep in mind as we do our budget is if you look at for the town, their unrestricted government aid only went up by about $55,000, $60,000, right? So it's not like, so there's a lot, while the school's budget increased a lot, the town, the aid the town's getting directly from the state didn't. So we want to keep that in mind, I think, as we go through the budget process, because we do know that if we are going to add staff or do certain things, those do come with an indirect cost to the town. It is important for that, though, because we do need to note that when our Chapter 70 budget goes up and our money from the state goes up, the expected contribution from the town also goes up. Now, we're okay because we've been above minimum contribution. But if the town doesn't give anything, eventually that's going to get eaten up, and then it'll be in a position where the town has to give money or they're not meeting minimum contribution. But I think it's okay. A lot of that is absorbed in the fact of things like insurance going up every year, right? So if they're covering the insurance and insurance goes up, whatever percent insurance is going to go up, that's an increase in school spending, even though it's not allocated to the school, because all the school employees, that counts towards our budget. So it's to our end-of-year report when we're trying to show our foundation budget to the state. So with that, what we tried to do, we met as an administrative team on Thursday, the 2nd, and we tried to look and create what we're calling Budget Version A. And our goal for that meeting was to get our preliminary budget. So our preliminary budget had a general fund increase of $2.4 million. Our goal was to get $556,000 basically out of that budget so that we at least got down to not exceeding the Chapter 70 increase, right? So that was sort of our target for that day, to look through and say, what changes would we make? Fortunately, we were able to get almost $200,000 out, which was a good start, for a couple of different special education tuitions that the student is no longer, we will no longer be financially responsible for those students next year. So that was something we could pull out of that. The athletic director, we had budgeted for a full-time athletic director. We cut that back to just keeping the part-time one. But what I did do is we moved that from school choice into the general fund, right? So the athletic director, part-time athletic director salary has been living in the school choice. We know we want to kind of phase out some school choice because we're spending more than we're receiving at this point. And if we want to build up to a full-time AD at some point, getting that into the general fund is a good way to start that process. So I think that still kind of gets us going in the right direction, but it probably would mean another year before you'd realize that. We did have a SLIFE teacher position that was budgeted this year that we had kept into the budget, but it's unfilled. That's for students with limited or interrupted formal education. And because we did add an EL teacher to each school, we thought we could, we weren't able to fill this position this year. We figured we'll take it out. Family outreach, by taking the SLIFE out, we did look at trying to add another family liaison, potentially, because we're looking at, one of the things we're looking at with that is instead of having the community outreach office at the central office, of looking to maybe go to more of a model where we're supported in the buildings. What we're finding is that when they're in central office, they're all over the place anyway, and it might make more sense to have a little more consistency where you just have a family liaison in each building. So we're trying to explore that. Business manager, that's just some of the adjustments based on what I kind of explained earlier. CHS guidance counselor, in the beginning we had put 2 new positions in at CHS, a guidance counselor and a school psychologist. We decided to take the guidance counselor out. Hopefully, usually with a school psychologist, they can do some counseling if that can fit in their caseload. Athletic supplies, we had budgeted $25,000 to try to get the scoreboard in the gym here, do something with the side panels and the control system for the scoreboard in this gym are kind of on their last legs, so we're looking at trying to get some quotes on that. So we had budgeted $25,000 to try to look at upgrading that. We took it out of the budget. Doesn't mean we're abandoning that project. That's also something that we might look to come back to once we get some quotes and figure out what we need, possibly to try to pay for that out of the rental facilities, because obviously the gyms are one of the things that's used by the community a lot. There's some other things that we came up, like distance learning software, SPED instructional software. If I skip that one teacher there, I'll come back to that. The CES instructional software, CES textbooks. Those are all things that we budgeted because we didn't want to lose them, but they're all things that we anticipate being able to cover with grants this year, because it's like one of those things that we don't have the final confirmation on the grants, but we're anticipating, based on, we got them this year, and we're anticipating we'll be able to use them for next year. So those are all things that we include them in the budgeting process, because eventually we're going to, but for this year we feel confident we're going to get those grants, so we took those out. CMS special ed teacher, we had kind of tried to pencil in looking at adding a life skills teacher. As we reviewed the caseload, I guess it was decided that we can probably get away with one more year, at least, without that position, with the setup based on the numbers. We still might need to re-examine that the following year with this population coming up, but for this year they felt they had a programmatic answer to that. And then salary assistance degree changes, that's sort of just an estimated amount anyway. We trimmed about 10% off of that. And then the classroom teacher, basically that was just a retiring teacher being replaced at a lower salary, so we took that out. So overall, so we got 600,000 out, but we kind of added that 87 back in, and that got us down to that 192,682 increase number. So that's where we are right now, sort of in budget version A. At this point, I think before we do any more cuts, I'd like to try to talk to the Finance Committee and get a sense of what they're thinking and try to get more of a firm proposal to them in terms of this is legitimately like the number of staff we might be looking at now that we've cut these ones out, and how is that going to impact you guys with insurance and those types of things, and we'll start bringing it together and see where we can meet, so hopefully we have something that works for us and works for the town. So, any questions on budget version A or any of the changes?
Steve, the only thing, and I should know this, is when's the final approved budget come from the State House? Ballpark.
It'll be a while. I mean, it might not be till June.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I think one year they actually missed it, and it was like July it came out. Yeah. So it's tough because they got a late start with the new governor. Historically, I would say Chapter 70 typically doesn't go down.
I was hoping the upside.
Yeah. But for us, it probably won't go, I would say this, it probably won't go up for us. So the districts that have large benefits from the Student Opportunity Act, which this came from that calculation of them funding the Student Opportunity Act. What's going to happen is, if you notice across the state, there's communities talking about 2.5 overrides and all this kind of stuff, because if you're a situation where you don't really benefit from the Student Opportunity Act based on your student population, and your population didn't grow significantly, you're getting the minimum aid, which is $30 a kid.
Okay.
So what you probably would see is people in those communities, the legislators of those communities, are going to advocate to try to get that back up. A lot of times they increase that to like $60 a kid or something like that. So I would say if we see more in Chapter 70, it's probably not coming to us. But because our funding is based on the Student Opportunity Act law, I don't think ours will go down either. I think we're probably pretty certain there.
Thanks.
And just a reminder, this is the third year, so FY24 would be the third year of Student Opportunity Act implementation. It is scheduled to be phased in over a 6-year period. So, now I don't know the exact percentages. I'm not saying we're going to get 1.9 million every year for the next 3 years, but they're still making those adjustments to these categories that are leading to our increase in Chapter 70. So, we're probably could expect at least a healthy increase in FY25, FY26, and FY27. So I think our job is to make sure that we're in a financially stable position by FY27, because we got to realize that come FY28, we could turn into a $30 a kid school, right? And then we go back to living in that reality. So I don't know that's going to happen, but that's what could happen, right? So we'll, but that's what we're keeping an eye on. We want to make sure that we're trying to use the money while we have it to do the best for our kids. I know our kids have a lot of needs. We know it's been a tough couple of years, but we also want to keep that eye on sustainability.
Thank you.
Any other questions on budget version A? So I'll talk to Mr. Ward. I know we do have an all boards meeting scheduled for the 15th, and we did talk about potentially, at least even if it's very brief, trying to put this in the hands of the Finance Committee, since we'll all be there anyway. But I don't know, because we want to do obviously we're doing the building committee stuff, so if that goes real long, I don't want to detract too much from it. But even if we give them a little quick handout and a little 2-pager explanation or something, we could do that, just so they can start getting something in there. And then, like I said, I anticipate that budget version A won't be our final budget, but I think right now we tried to make the good faith effort of getting it down to just our increase, and then we'll see what we need to do to work with the town.
Thanks.
All right. Grant applications, we had an entitlement grant and a grant application, and I wanted to keep you in the loop on this. This Fund Code 186 is the Title III Part A Immigrant Children and Youth Grant. Sorry, I was cut off up there. And the reason that one of the reasons I wanted to share this with you is if you go down to eligibility on the page here, it talks about we are now eligible for this grant this year. Now, it's not a ton we're getting. We're eligible for about $9,000. So it's not a huge grant, but the eligibility means we need to have 100 or more immigrant students in the district. Of those immigrant students, at least over 50% of them have to be low income. The number of immigrant students enrolled this year must be 10 more than the prior 2 years, and the percentage of immigrant students this year must be at least 14.5% higher than the average of the prior 2 years. So part of why I'm bringing this to your attention is also because, like, one, it's a grant we've got, and we're going to use that, and we're hopefully trying to use it to run some summer school, although I did get some questions on my grant application today, but we're hoping to use some summer school opportunities to help serve English learners. But we were one of 29 districts in the entire state that were eligible for this grant when you look at that eligibility criteria. So when we talk about, we're seeing populations of families that are doubling up and students, like, it's true. So that's one of the things that we're working on. And then the next one I just included, it was just kind of, it's a Safer Schools and Community Initiative. This one is not an entitlement grant. This is competitive, so whether we get it or not, we'll see. We have not received this funding in recent years, very recently, so we might have an option for it. But really, we're looking for security things, looking at addressing intercom systems, key card access, security cameras, possibly locking devices for doors, those types of things. So it's something, and actually, Chris Tahan, because a lot of it was technology-based, Chris Tahan was one that wrote the grant application, so there's sort of a budget there, really kind of, you're allowed $50,000 per site, so we applied for $50,000 for each school. Like I said, I don't know that we're going to get $150,000 from this grant. It is competitive, but I just wanted people to realize, there's competitive grants out there. We are putting in for it, and this one was directly kind of tied to all the other stuff we just sort of talked about. So, I think what's next here? Building update. We do have a building committee meeting tomorrow. What's nice about that, or what's going to happen at that meeting, is they're going to, we have a 6:30 meeting tomorrow. It's a remote meeting. And they're going to, LPA is going to walk the building committee through their sort of preliminary designs based on what they've heard as far as, I think they walked me through, like, the preliminary ones last week. So I think I want to say they had 5 drafted options for new construction, and they had 2 ones that were for renovation addition. And then the one you have to do is they have to look at one that's a cost proposal of just kind of keeping the same building, right? So those are the ones that they're looking at now. The plan is to share those ideas with the building committee tomorrow during the building committee time, and then basically present them again at the all boards meeting that we're trying to put together. Basically the selectmen meeting where we're inviting all these boards, the finance committee, the planning committee, us, the building committee, on the 15th. At the one on the 15th, what they're actually going to do is they're going to give people stickers. So if you're on the board, you'll get a sticker. It'll be a certain color. If you're just a citizen that wants to come, parent, whoever, and you can register. You can go see them and just sort of fill out a little card with some basic information, and they'll give you stickers. And then what they're going to ask people is kind of, they'll have the idea is we'll have the plans set up. So after you kind of hear the presentation, they'd like you to sort of put your stickers on the ones that you thought were the kind of the best ideas. So it's not like a binding thing, but it's just sort of like a straw poll to see when people hear these ideas, what do they think of? They will have, at the 15th, they are supposed to have, they won't have any cost numbers as far as like dollar amounts, but they are going to try to, I kind of described it as like, if you ever go to like Disney World and you're looking at restaurants and you see the ones that's got like $4 signs versus the one that has like $2 signs, like that's kind of the comparison they're going to give you, is like the, relatively which one would probably be more expensive than the others, but so you're kind of comparable, or these might be all about the same price, this one might be more, this one might be less, and that kind of stuff. And then, so you would have that information without a true dollar sign on it yet. And then the idea is, following that meeting, following that input, at the next building committee meeting, they would look at those different designs, and we would try to get them down to 3 that we wanted them to do a further study on. And then when we select from those 3, by the time we get to that stage, which would be in June, there would be more accurate dollar signs and things like that included, and things would be fleshed out a little more on some of the drawings and stuff. So it's, so it's moving along. It's definitely a good step to start getting some input, and I do think one of the things I asked to make sure too is that we had a sort of like a feedback option. So I think people will be able to vote, and then I think we're going to kind of have like a box where people can almost just like fill it on a card, any questions or concerns, and just sort of put it in the box so we can look at that if they have any different ideas or concerns. So anyone is welcome to that. It's going to be on the 15th at 6 o'clock. It'll be in the plan is for it to be in the actual auditorium, not the selectmen chambers, so that we can fit everybody and hopefully have room to put sort of like panels of each of the designs around the outside so people can sort of walk around and vote. I will say I did see the two ad renos, and I was surprised. I thought I just thought they came out with a lot of nice ideas. I mean, they have a proposed option of what would it look like to build a school right there, like what would it look like to build a school on the other side, like so. All those different things we've kind of been kicking around. Now there's sort of like a drawing to say, well, this is what it would have to look like, So it's pretty neat. So it's moving along. Hopefully we'll get some good feedback. What else did I have here? Oh, academic achievement. I think we're still, the top one is develop and implement best practices and instruction to support all learners. One of the things we are working on now that we've completed sort of our equity audit and our special ed review, I know one of the things we'll be doing at the elementary school pretty soon is looking to come up with the instructional handbook. We have the grant money from that, from the turnaround grant. And hopefully kind of once we sort of get that instructional handbook, we're going to kind of use that to hopefully try to phase our way up through the district on looking at those best practices in terms of different instructional techniques. Aligning and enhancing curriculum with the Massachusetts frameworks. I mean, I think we've been doing that for years now. I feel pretty good about where we are, particularly in our core areas. And I know that I believe the middle school and the high school will both be doing some direct curriculum work as well on the 13th. I know the high school definitely will be doing some curriculum mapping for NEASC and stuff. And then the student growth and stuff on standardized tests. I don't have a lot of data for you for that right now, but we do have, as part of the Student Opportunity Act, we have to file a Student Opportunity Act report every year. That report is due in April, and what we're supposed to try to do with that is to look at and say, these are the things we said we wanted to add to the budget these are our goals from our Student Opportunity Act plan. These are the things we tried to spend Student Opportunity Act money on. How did that translate to any improvement and that kind of stuff? So I'll try to get you more. I'll share that SOA report when we get that done in April, and I think that'll be a more qualitative look at some of that data. Sorry, quantitative look. And the last one is just, signs and scoreboards. I already kind of mentioned the scoreboard. The other one, too, is we're also I'm trying to get some quotes to look at replacing the sign at the elementary school. It's very tall and very difficult to sort of manage. It's also in a very prime location, I feel like. I feel like if we got a message center there, we could almost maybe angle it or something so you could almost like look down High Street and see it, or from the other way. So we're trying to get some quotes on that. If we were going to move something like that, I'd bring them to you guys, but that was something we might try to look at, something like rental facilities as well. And I do know, part of the other reason I brought that up is I do know that in the town's ARPA plan, one of the things they were looking at was some sort of looking at trying to get more digital signage, so we might be able to kind of piggyback off some of that as well. And I think that's all I have.
Anything from curriculum?
No.
Safety?
No.
Better update today, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, we covered safety, I guess.
Marketing, we met last time.
All right. The policies and procedures, is this?
Yeah, you have one new policy in there. This was remember last time we voted on all but one because we wanted to make a couple more revisions. We just made a couple revisions. They weren't, I would say they're not substantial to the policy. They were just more, just tweaking a little bit of wording so that we, for instance, the first sentence, we said students will be examined for mandated screenings issued by the Massachusetts Department of Public Health School Division. The original thing said something like, as required by laws and so it was just sort of a little cleaner, friendlier version of this that kind of incorporates some things. So I know this is probably the little slightly different than the policy committee saw, but like I said, I don't think it changes the heart or the intent of the policy, so I would recommend it for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve medical policy JLCA.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Being none, all in favor? Unanimous.
Yeah.
All right, facilities, I don't have anything.
Yeah, nothing under negotiations.
Perfect. All right, anything under old business? New business?
Well, we just got a
You have your
record.
hand in the air, or oh, all right, no. I don't know when you're raising your hand.
I brought the paper in for new business.
Yeah.
Because we just got to recognize that we have two of our school committee members being recognized at the Leprechaun Convention this year with shillelaghs. So I know Brennan Bailey was the first one there. I don't know if they did it alphabetically, but you were the first one listed.
I'm sure it was.
And then Tina was actually sort of recognized in there twice as an individual and as as a couple, I guess, with her husband, and as a member of the Holiday Pops Committee. So it was good to see you guys recognized. And I know they didn't write a whole lot in there about your school committee service, but I think that added to your candidacy, which is
Sure
good.
that helped, yeah.
So
Congratulations.
Thanks, Steve. All right, anything else? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
all right. We did it. Kept it under an hour.
I know, yeah. I got nothing to do, though. I don't know where-
Good luck tomorrow night. I'm going to see you at the game. I had babysitting.
I could probably just log in on my phone.
Tina, someone's watching you live and they know it just ended. How's it going, Pam?
Everything's great. How are you?
You been back to Florida recently?
No, I wish. I thought you were down there.
I was down there in